So let's get into it.
I've made every single one of my clients cry.
Telecoms, sales.
HR is about creating environments where people feel safe.
Are you asking me why social media just moves so quickly?
What the hell's going on with the bank?
Can we move on?
It's not something that I want to put out there.
I will put it out there. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
From We Do HR. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming down. I think from what I've been told and from what I've read about you, you have a wealth of knowledge on not only HR, but in humans in general, because you've had to deal with them. So just to ease us in, just give us a little brief synopsis of who you are and why you do what you do.
Okay. So I'm Sarah Cook and I'm from We Do HR Support. I spent my career working in service-based industries initially, I'd say. So I originally started in operational management. I worked for Thomas Cook. I managed a few branches for them, did a few projects in the head office, one of which was doing training and development, and various other jobs. Eventually ended up working or being asked to work in HR by one of my clients when I worked for Training and Enterprise Council.
Oh, wow.
And kind of found that, that was really, where I was meant to be. So I've spent my HR career working for what I'd describe as large SMEs or small corporates.
Yep.
So never really any more than about 3,000 to 5,000 employees.
Yep.
Always with, sites all over the place, UK, European, global remits. And I'd say that the things that I have that have been great in my career is I've always worked in an organisation that's big enough to do some really exciting HR stuff.
Nice.
But small enough to be able to make the decision to do it, have a board meeting one day, say, we're going to do it, and start working on it the next day.
Rather than it go to committee and then have to wait and prolonged and all the agony that comes along with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've had the opportunity to do some, really exciting stuff, which is great.
I take it you've seen quite a lot of things in your life, in your HR career, of not only things that employees do wrong or bosses or companies, the wrong way they handle certain things, but cultural shifts as well, and how a cultural shift assists a company grow and expand or actually keep working. Because from our philosophy here is to nurture our team members so that they're with us long term.
Yeah.
The accountant will always go on to me about the cost of hiring you against the cost of keeping and so forth. And that's where good HR, good culture can come in. So what have you seen that over the years that you've been in HR? Have you seen anything that is a commonality that happens quite a lot that shouldn't really happen, or something that can change that would assist the company, assist the employees, but it's something you've seen in multiple different companies, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I think there's two answers or 2 points to pull out of that, I think.
Yeah.
The first one is that when you are growing as an organisation, you sometimes get to a point where the culture that got you where you are now is not the culture you need to get you to where you want to be. So that always takes some thought and some planning. And I think the other thing that a lot of businesses don't realise, and it's obvious when you stop to think about it, is that you've got a culture. Whether you work on your culture or you don't work on your culture, or you know what your culture is, or your culture is how you want it or how you don't want it, you have got one. And if you don't actively get hold of it and manage it and guide it to where you want it to be, then it can go feral and you can end up with
Sounds
something
like my children.
that's really not what you wanted. And there are lots of things that do that. So, and I think the last few years have been a really exciting time to look at culture in an organisation, because you've got a lot of changes happening. So there's a lot of technology stuff that's happening that's changing the way that organisations work. COVID has changed the way in which we all work.
How did you find that with, so obviously you've been going as We Do HR for 3 years, so kind of the beginning of COVID you set up. How have you found companies have handled it? I take it different companies handle it in different ways, some in good ways, some in bad ways. How have you found that shift? Have you found that it shifted how companies actually start to behave, or how they are behaving towards their employees in a good way, or even in a bad way, I suppose? But
I think I think it's still evolving. And I mean, I saw something the other day about a large financial business, which I won't name, which was I thought that was really interesting, because at the beginning of COVID, they sent everybody home. They got, quite a few large premises with a lot of people working in them. These people employ thousands and thousands of people. And they sent everybody home. They worked from home. It was all set up. And I know a few people that work for this organisation. And I know that as COVID progressed, maybe 12, 24 months in, they were being told, we're saving the working spaces we've got for the people that need to come in. So if you can work from home, do work from home, etc., etc. But I saw, something the other day, a case against them because they were making redundancies or reducing numbers of people, and they seemed to be active. The complaint was that they were actively targeting those people who worked from home. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting shift in, what is, 3 and a bit years from, yes, we're up for this, we're doing this, to now let's get rid of all the people. I mean, and that's a sweeping generalisation.
Is that because they can't get them back into the office? Because across all of the news and media at the moment is this big problem with them, people not being able to get them back into the office now they've relinquished them from the office. So
potentially, and there are some people. I mean, I know people who, I know someone who works in IT, and the company he works for have got a huge, big, fancy pants office in London. He used to live in London. He used to go into that office, on a daily basis, even though the clients he works with it's all remote. They're all based in India, the people he works with. And during COVID, he moved to the Southwest. So he's not going to come into the office every day now.
No.
But how, as an organisation, can you justify asking someone whose clients aren't in the same country as them to come into an office when they've been doing the job, getting great, performance reviews and great feedback for the last, 2 or 3 years, and they've been doing it all remotely?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, I suppose. For us, when it hit, we went remote. Those that needed to work in the office worked in the office. We were all on Teams calls. We had an open Teams call all day long so that people didn't feel as though they were on their own because they were working from home. We were lucky, I suppose, in one way because we were classed as one of the services that is required. The companies we work with medical and financial. So we had kind of free roam during COVID, so much so that I got a picture of me going from here to Bristol down the M4, literally not a single car on the M4. I was the only car on the M4. It's like the first time and last time I'll ever see that in my life, I think. But we got to free roam. But my team found it better to come back into the office when we could, because we bounce off of each other the way we work. Yes, our jobs can be done remotely 95% of the time. Not a problem whatsoever. But because of that way we bounce off of each other and it's easier, we can overhear conversations that are going on, and we can chip in because of what we do and so forth. We find that it's easier to work together in a group. But I suppose it's for those companies that are that the employee has been doing really well for the last 2 to 3 years, working from home.
Yeah.
There's no drop in productivity. They're still keeping their same clients and so forth. How do you justify going, now I want everybody back in the office because I'm paying for a really expensive office and I need to use it?
It's a really good question, and it's something that I think, people say, and that's one of the most common questions I get asked is, well, how do we manage this hybrid working thing? And the answer is you manage it on a case-by-case basis. So you lay out generally what it is you want. But, I would always say to a business owner, start with, what do people want? What is it they're asking you for? Do they want to come back into the office? Because there are, whole groups of people that do want to get back into the office. I like working with other people around me. It's easier for me to just kind of like go, let's think about this or think about that, and that's really nice. But other people in my team are like, it's bliss because they haven't got me all day going, have we thought about this? Have we thought about that?
Sound exactly like me and my team.
So, and you've got, if you want to get the best out of the people that you've got working for you, you need to, create the right environment. And my mantra is in HR is that HR is about creating environments where people feel safe and inspired to bring their very best selves to work for you every day.
Yeah.
And if
Love
you
what
have
they do.
got that, then you've got engaged, happy, good mental health people working for you. And they are, so they're not distracted by the worries and things that they've got on, somewhere else. So then you're getting the best out of people, and in a purely, mercurial fashion, you're getting what you pay for, but also you're getting, engaged staff who are happy and productive, and will talk about your company in glowing terms to the talent out there that you want to attract into your organisation.
Rather than I hate my job and I've got to get up at 9 o'clock and I've got to go to work. I've got to do this.
Yeah.
Rather than, I'm going to do this because X, Y, Z. Yeah. It's, I suppose COVID was a bit weird for all of us, right? Business owners, employees, large companies, smaller companies, because it was a complete shock. It was something none of us had ever handled before. And we found that there were certain companies that handled it really well. Yeah. There were certain companies that weren't. For us, COVID was a benefit in pushing people to the cloud that had been sat on the fence for a long time. Yeah. A lot of we work with some very old school companies, and they won't mind me calling them old school, but they've been around for a long time. Their data was in their building. They're very much of the mindset of, my employees have to be in the office because I need to be able to see them. I need to be able to know what they're doing. I don't want them sat around jibber-jabbering and having coffees and not doing any work, even though that really doesn't show what productivity is or not nowadays. So it helped us because we were able to go, we got phone calls from companies that weren't even our clients. Yeah. They were like, our IT's not answering the phone and we're in lockdown. What do we do? How do we? And we migrated people to quick solutions to cloud and got them being able to work. And the funniest thing I found after lockdown had finished the first time, they were like, you can go back to work. I had clients call me and go, so how do we now go back into the office? I was like, well, you just lift up your device. And you walk into the office and you plug it in.
Carry it into the office and plug it in there.
Really? Yeah, because now you can work from anywhere. Literally anywhere. So your telecoms have been changed. You're now on VoIP solutions. You literally can work from anywhere. Really? I had one director say to me, you mean I can work from a beach? And I was like, yes. As long as you've got internet connection, you can work from anywhere. And it's that shift in mentality to go, or the mindset to go, actually. And then Oxfordshire is a bit of a bubble. Economically, it's a bit of a bubble, especially with all the economics that are going on in the country at the moment. But we found clients have turned to us and gone, actually, we've made more during COVID, during lockdowns, during what's going on at the moment than we were before because our team is more productive.
Yeah.
And it just seems, I don't know if that's the UK as a whole, but in our bubble that we're in, because we're in the Oxfordshire bubble, and Oxfordshire is always a bit of a bubble when it comes to finances and by all means, we set up in the middle of a recession. I set up in 2008, bang in the centre of a recession. Yeah, so I was. We had our bank manager in the other day, and I was saying to him, so if we made it through a recession, we've made it through a pandemic, and we're basically in a recession now.
Yeah.
To which he sat there and said, well, actually, I'm loaning on recession terms, so therefore we're in a recession, whether they come out and publicly say it. So if businesses can make it through those types of things and still be here, I think we all need to pat ourselves on the back for the business. Yourself, you set up at the beginning of the pandemic and you're growing. So we all have to, and for me, I think business owners, you might have found this, being a business owner and also working with other business owners, sometimes fail to pat themselves on the back for where they have actually got to.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think it's that's very true. You don't, and you tend not to look back, do you? You tend always to look forward to what's the next thing, where am I going? But there's, and even if you don't do it for yourself as a business owner, because some business owners say, yeah, but I don't need to pat myself on the back, but actually you need to stop and let your team catch up with you, and you need to pat them on the back, and you need to let them pat themselves on the back, because that's how you keep people kind of like, going with you. So yeah, I think that's really important. And I mean, you set up 15 years ago, and I think IT outsource was probably one of the first things that people made sense to outsource, didn't it? And people could see the value and the sense of that.
You see a cost value of it straight away, and which is always good to. And
also as well, if you had an IT team in your business, quite often, so in my experience as in-house HR, the people that you have to keep saying, okay, smart casual doesn't mean flip-flops and board shorts.
The IT department
was always the IT department.
Flops and board shorts.
So yeah, so I think that it was really made sense to outsource, but HR is, I think it's a post-pandemic outsource. There's always been people doing outsourced HR, but I think it's really become much more
commonplace.
Something much more people are going to get. Yeah, do you know what that is? Because I think businesses that we were talking earlier about businesses with sort of 25 to 150 employees. You wouldn't necessarily have anybody doing HR.
No.
Pre-pandemic.
No, it would have been the business owner's responsibility.
Need to be thinking about it now.
Yeah.
It's so hard to recruit. You've got to be looking at what are you doing with your teams? How are you keeping your teams engaged?
Why is it so hard to recruit now, though? You're in the industry, so why is it that it is so hard?
I think, there are a lot of industries where, I speak to people in hospitality. So, number one, Brexit, they lost a lot of people who might have just, come over and worked seasons. They were shut through COVID, so people went off and got jobs somewhere else. Yep. And, hospitality is not particularly well paid, so they went off, they got jobs somewhere else, and they thought, why am I going to go back there for, £11 an hour when I can work here for £13, £15 an hour, Yep. So there's that. I think it just seems really difficult. I think a part of it as well is that, we are living in uncertain times, and there is a bit of, insecurity around. So people aren't willing. Why will I jump from here where I've been maybe for 5 years and, I quite like it. It's stable. Yep. If they want to get rid of me, they need to do this, this and this. Why do I want to go somewhere else? Well, I'll have to do a probation period. They might be able to get rid of me really easily. If they did, I wouldn't get any redundancy money. Yeah, all of those kind of things. So it's more difficult to persuade people to leave where they are because, and there's a piece of research on motivation and on what motivates people. We all have our own individual motivators. But the research shows that when you are, living in times like this where, things are uncertain, you're much more likely to be motivated by security and achieving security. And it's that kind of like, Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of thing. I need a job. I need this much money. I need to pay my mortgage. I need to pay my bills. I need to feed my children, So it's more difficult to convince people to move. And sometimes companies are not being realistic about the salary that they are going to offer people.
Sometimes potential employees are not realistic.
Well,
about
exactly.
as well.
The unrealistic. There's no distinction. Both sides can be very unrealistic. Yeah, definitely. But if you've got somebody who's say you're looking for a job that your existing incumbent you paid £40,000 to, and they've just resigned and they've left and they're going somewhere else to do something similar, but maybe a little bit more senior, and they're being paid £50,000.
Yep.
You are not going to replace them for 40.
No, not in today's.
No.
In the way we are at the moment.
Because you've got to leverage someone else out of their position.
Yes.
Just like the firm
Which
that
is
took your person.
Sat in the same,
leveraged them out, and they leveraged them out with a bit more money and a few more benefits and these
a little bit more holiday and a little bit more maybe work from home and so forth.
Yeah.
Have you found that in this whole work from home scenario, it's been easier to do HR or harder to do HR?
That's a really good question. I don't think it's been easier or harder to do good HR.
Okay.
I think what happened in the pandemic is it shone a light on HR in general as an industry, which means that, the teams that were phoning it in got found out.
Yeah, really quickly.
I think if you are really good at what you do in terms of HR, you're really good at it, whether you work from home or whether you work in the office. I think practicing HR is different now because we have these hybrid situations. So we might have a group of people working from home. We might have a group of people working from the office. There are certain, new principles to apply. There are all the old principles that apply. If you worked somewhere where it was multi-site, I'm quite used to working flexibly and working from home sometimes or working from different sites. And that's been my positions for the last sort of, nearly 15 years. I've worked, in different offices. So if you're responsible for a group of 10 offices, you can only be in one place at a time. So if I'm working here, I'm not working in 9 other places. So I am, being remote.
Yep.
So I think, people who are used to doing that maybe were much quicker to sort of catch on to, okay, this is just like, being in this office and not being in those other offices. Only I'm at home and everyone else is at home. But if you hadn't experienced that before, if you're used to being 200 people in one building, then, it's a bit of a shift. And there are things that you can't just run down the corridor and have a chat with somebody. You've got to do it over Teams, pick up the phone, send emails.
Did you suffer from Zoom and Teams fatigue?
Yeah. And I think everybody had a laptop. Everybody's laptop has a preference, don't they, for Zoom, Teams, or God forbid anybody sent me an invite for Google Meet. Then my brain would fry. I have literally been that close to saying I can't do it. Is there another platform you can use? I don't want to use that. I can't get in. So that was kind of like horrific. But my laptop is fine with Teams. We do loads and loads of Teams, and I like Teams. Zoom is a little bit more problematic for me.
Yeah, Zoom has some security issues as well.
Does it?
Yeah,
I know.
and some of its new terms and conditions are a little bit questionable on what they do with your data and your recordings and stuff.
Yeah.
A little bit grey areas, which HR don't like grey
Yeah.
areas.
Well,
Like IT, we don't like it.
HR is a world of grey areas. Nothing is black and white because we're dealing with people.
Yeah.
The policy might say that, but that's,
Yeah,
that's
but
just
then
your
it is-
starting point.
Yeah, very true. Have you found that the leaps in technology that we've had over the last really 3 years or so that we've had have assisted or hindered like what you need to do and how you need to deal with humans?
I think, but overall, I'd probably say assisted because you've got so many other options. So I think that the more tools you have in your toolkit, the more likely you are to be able to choose the right tool for the right job.
Yep.
I think advances in technology are great. I'm not an early adopter by any means.
You like to know that it's tested and proven first before
it just
does what it's meant to do.
My brain doesn't have the space to go, oh, okay, this is interesting. What's to do? But somebody will say something to me and I'll think, oh, okay, I hadn't thought about it like that. And a friend of mine who is more of a techie person said to me something about AI and a chat GPT.
Yep.
And I said, oh, okay, I hadn't thought of it about like that. So I then went off and explored it because somebody that I have a relationship with and whose opinion on these things I respect said something.
Yeah, you might want to look at it in this way.
So, and then I thought, oh yeah, well, that's really interesting. But I kind of, you're bombarded with so much information. You've got to filter.
So much information.
So don't tell my other half I said you've got to filter. He filters all the time. You never filter me.
Yeah, no, both me and my partner have individual partner filters that we can be in the same room and the other person can be talking. It's like, sorry, what were you saying? I had my filter turned on. I apologise.
Yeah, so my
AI.
husband, I'm literally sending him minutes.
No, AI technology, you mentioned AI. Obviously, AI is being bred into everything now across the board. We're bombarded with it all over the place. There's been some issues in schools of kids using AI to write their essays. And
I think, it's, I always find it easier. So when we're looking at a project or a new policy or an idea for something, I'm fortunate that I've been, kind of like a leader or a manager of a team for quite a long time now. So I don't have to do my own dirty work. So I'll say, well, somebody pull me together a straw man, and somebody put some bullets down or something like that, and you get something, and then I can work with that. I can say, okay, right, I think this is good. This is good. We're missing something. Where's the bit we're missing? Oh, do you think it's this? We'll put that in and we'll pull it together. So I think you can use AI to do that. And you can say, look, you can say to AI, I want to pull together a policy for this. It needs to think about this, this and this. It needs to flow. It needs to start from here and finish at there. And then you get something. And, whole tranches of it will be useless, what I call weasel words that don't mean anything. But there will be some, you might get some structure, you might get some nugget of information.
I used it recently to summarise the new online safety bill, which is 145 pages.
Yeah.
Not as big as GDPR. No. GDPR was 198, I think.
Still getting sweats thinking about GDPR.
Yeah, I live and breathe it on a daily basis. So I threw the online safety bill into it and went, summarise it, give me key points, give me what I need to know, give me what's good, what's bad, give me the pros, give me the cons. It summarised it down into just over a page, which actually I don't need to know the nitty-gritty details, I just need the summary. Whereas before, it would have been either I'd have had to read it and summarise it, or one of my team would have had to read it and then give me a summary on it. And then there's always a bit of human bias, I suppose,
Yes,
in the
yeah,
summary that you're
yeah.
giving on it. Whereas with AI, I'm finding...
Well, that's a good question, though. So, is there bias? Because I recently, and I'm going to go back to my unisex toilet analogy again now. But I read a book recently by Caroline Criado Perez. And it's called Invisible Women. It's about the data gap because we don't collect data on women.
Okay.
And so I used to work in construction and engineering.
Okay.
So more women have accidents on, secure sites, safety building sites and things like that. Wow. The reason is because PPE is not designed for women. PPE is designed for men. So the arms are too long, the legs are too long, the crutches are too low, the shoes are too big.
Yeah.
When I worked in construction and I needed steel toe cap boots, it took ages and ages to come because I have quite small feet. Even for an adult woman, I have small feet. And they just didn't make them in my size.
Wow.
And then you think about things like, there's a piece, mobile phones are mainly too big for female hands.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of, cars. Only recently they've just started crash testing cars with female dummies. There's a whole load of...
Different body shape, I suppose, different composure, different... Yeah.
There's a whole load of stuff recently about women footballers are suffering more ACL injuries. Why is that? Is that because our bodies are... different shapes, we have wider hips, maybe we drive more force through the knee. I don't know. I'm interested in that. My son's a footballer and he's recently just done his ACL. So he's having an operation next week. But there are, there's a lot of missing data. And there are a lot of things that you look at. Like I recently stayed in a hotel chain who will remain nameless.
Oh, go on then.
Malmaison.
I've stayed there before.
All of their shaving mirrors, which are the magnifying mirrors, are too high to look at. And I'm 5'6", so I am not a short woman. I'm taller than the average British woman, but they're all too short. And if they don't have the expandable arms, you can't pull it down far enough to do your makeup.
No, I'm 5'7". They're too tall for basically too tall for me.
Yeah. So they're obviously designed for men.
Yep.
And I also feel doubly aggrieved because I'm left-handed, and the entire world is designed for right-handed people.
Very true.
So you tend to notice things like that. So when you talk about AI, and you ask, and there's been lots of stuff, hasn't there, on LinkedIn where you ask AI to generate a picture, and it's always a white male.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the unwritten bias in it. The OpenAI came out about ChatGPT, and their statement is that they haven't written specific bias into it, but because of the amount of data that they have taught the model on, it is pulling bias because they scrape the internet. Yeah. So you're going to get how much rubbish is out on the internet, which has a big swing of bias to the right or to the left or whichever way. It's going to have that bias in it naturally. We found talking to it that if we can pose questions in certain ways, it's rudimentally the same question, but the structure of the prompt is different. We get a completely different answer. And it will be sometimes biased to one side or the other, or completely different answer. So I don't think AI in any way is perfect. We're in the infancy stage. It's been out a year now, since October last year. So we are in the infancy stage of technology, considering the way in which technology expands and grows. We're in iPhone 1 generation style. You look at an iPhone, the original iPhone now against what they have now, or any piece of phone or technology, you go, wow. And that's a short window of time that we've got there. 10 years maybe, somewhere along those lines. So I think AI will improve, and I think it's going to be ingrained in everything that we do.
I think
because of the cost savings of companies being able to implement it. We say quite a lot on different ones of our shows and podcasts is that it is a tool.
Yes.
And if you can use it and utilize it to do what you do, but either more efficiently or better,
Yeah.
then why wouldn't you
Why
want
wouldn't
to use it? And there's this big thing at the moment about the amount of jobs people are going to lose to AI. I don't believe you will. I think my belief is you'll lose your job to somebody who does the same job but also uses AI as a tool and knows how to use it, than you would lose it completely to AI.
Yeah. I think from an HR perspective, the interesting thing about AI will be, making sure that if you're using that as a tool, you understand its fallibilities. So, you've got to understand that because it's scraping all the available data from the internet, but we already know that there is a massive amount of missing data that is not collected from women, then you know that it's obviously male bias because that data doesn't exist.
Yeah.
They this book I was saying, when you read about the book, when they do like new clinical drug trials, they deliberately select groups of men to test some clinical drug trials on, or they have previously. I think there's some talk that the legislation is changing now, but they do that because men don't have the fluctuating hormones that women have. So it means that you get a more reliable response. But what does that mean for the efficacy of the drug if you are giving it to women whose hormones fluctuate?
Which technically you shouldn't. If you're going to, you need to do two base tests.
Yeah.
You need to do female and male.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll get your cleaner results because there's less hormone, but you still need to know what its effects are on females if it's going to be prescribed to females.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think from an HR perspective, AI will be really interesting because it will be about, how are you using this tool to make sure that you're not baking in bias or prejudice into some of the things that you're doing. So I think that's interesting. I think, like you were saying, you can give it something to research, which previously you would have given to somebody
junior
in the team.
Or somebody in the team, yeah.
And so I think that also poses an interesting question in the same way as sat-navs have made that bit of our brain that locates where we are much smaller. What will AI, do you think, do to our ability to research topics?
I think there's quite a lot of arguments all over the internet and all over about that actual subject, and I'm a big believer in the way we have become symbiotic with electronic devices as humans, like our mobile phones. Yeah. I remember 2 phone numbers now, whereas when I was a child, because I remember before mobile phones, yourself, Will, we remembered. I had a whole list of phone numbers in my head. I knew everybody's phone number, go to the pay box, make the phone call. Since mobile phones, I literally remember 2 phone numbers, and that's my office number and my other half's number. Yeah. That I know my own number, but that's it because I don't need it. It's the same, your point on sat-nav. I learned to drive and was driving when we had AA road maps.
Use a map,
You had them. You open the road map book, and that gave us I think that taught us probably a better sense of direction, so that we can. I still can go to places without actually knowing where I'm going. Yeah. I know it's that direction. I'll find my way. Yeah. I can read a sign. But you're right. It's what the use of AI or the more reliance on AI is going to take away. There's an argument going on at the moment about school education. Yeah. And I've stated it on our podcast before. I think there are quite a lot of teachers out there, not everybody, I'm not generalising, there are quite a lot of teachers out there that have to, before AI, had to use Google to fully understand some of the essays their students were writing anyway. Yeah. And now there's this whole argument about students using AI to write their... But if we've got AI at our fingertips, our educational system needs to change because it's only going to get ingrained in everything that we do. And if you can I have the ChatGPT app on my phone, which I can click on and I can voice talk to it and have a conversation with it about something. Oh, I want to know about X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about it? It's going to give me the information that it's got back. I think we're going to have another empty space in our brains that we don't need for researching, because we use AI to research it.
Yeah.
And then that brings us on to the argument of, do you actually, are we going to get to a stage where you don't actually need to learn anything?
You just need to be able to interpret, what you're given from. Yeah. I think it's really interesting, and it makes you wonder about, in the same way as kind of like medicine is moving much more towards a personalised thing. So you get the your health cared for you personally, as opposed to a generic thing. It makes you wonder whether education should move more to a more personalised thing, which actually would probably be much better for those children who are on the outside of a class. So if you're
Because
dyslexic or you've got ADHD or you can't learn visually, you're more auditory or kinesthetic or something like that. Maybe that would help those children to be better catered for than they are in schools, because you've as a child these days in the education system, you have to fit into the system. The system isn't going to, the system doesn't do you any favours at all. So you have to fit into the system.
Our education system hasn't really changed in the last 100 years.
No,
it's the same. Yes, there are some additional subjects, and they might have found few newer ways to teach you the same thing. But in principle, it's the same that we've been being taught for the last 100 years.
And it's not, it's not inclusive in the way that it should be.
No, and the world's a different place now. Much the same for business compared to the way we all did business 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Pre-pandemic. Yeah. Pre-AI, pre-technological advances that we've had is completely different to the way we do business now. I'm now going more and more on, when I have new client meetings, I give them the option now, and it's like, would you like a Teams call? Or would you like it in person? Should we do it? Oh, thank you. Should we do it old school?
Yeah.
And I'm finding a lot of clients like, can we actually do it old school? Can we sit down and, because you can read a person, you can get to understand them. It's not so much what comes out of their mouth as to everything else. Right?
Well, I think it's what you're seeing is, and it's that thing. This is going back to hybrid working again, isn't it? When so if you do that, the pie chart where 7% of the method of communication is the actual words you use. Yep. The rest of it is your body language and your tone of voice, etc. Yep. So. When I was training, I used to do a thing where I used to say to people, and if you don't believe that, pick a soap, even if you don't watch soaps, switch off the sound and watch an episode of EastEnders or Coronation Street or something like that, and you will be amazed
how much you understand.
At how much of the storyline you understand just by watching everyday body language. And that's innate in us, that is we are born with that ability, and the more we are in the world, the less we use it, and we kind of it's a bit like that
you can't
film.
Get that same effect.
Do you remember that film? There was a film ages ago where the babies were geniuses, but once they hit toddlerish age, then they suddenly went to being dumb babies again, kind of thing. Yeah. It's a bit like that. You're born with all this knowledge and innate ability to read people and body language, and then as you start to speak and grow up and interact in that way, you lose that ability.
Yeah.
But sat in front of somebody, you are benefiting from the kind of like the 360 kind of method of communication,
you get the whole method of communication, right? You get tone, you get their body language, you get their facial expressions, you get everything from that more than the actual words, because we're all guilty of reading an email incorrectly, in the wrong tone or in the wrong. But it is that thing, the human interaction, which I think for the last 3 years we've probably lost a lot of, which probably doesn't help HR and human resources losing that bit, I suppose.
I mean, most of, a lot of what we do is, like I was saying, it's, I've got a problem with this. Well, have you spoken to them? No. Sent them an email. Or, I once worked for somebody, a lady who wasn't very technical, and she, everybody used to moan about her emails because everything was in capitals, and she was she's yelling at you all the time, but she didn't know how. She had caps lock on her keyboard and she didn't know how to switch it off. So you kind of like go, oh, okay, and I think a lot of HR is kind of saying to people, well, have you thought about what might be going on for them that they are behaving like this?
Getting people to put themselves in other people's shoes.
And what's the cause? And okay, it might just be that, they're bad-tempered or grumpy and, they don't want to do it, or but, thinking about what's going on for other people is always, it's a good place to start. Otherwise you miss stuff. Yeah. And where, in HR, there's this constant battle of, you have to be consistent as an organisation. So you have to be able to demonstrate that you apply your policies and procedures consistently, but you also have to take things on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
Because people are individuals. So whilst you're being consistent, you could be discriminating against somebody with a protected characteristic.
Yeah. You have to take that into consideration.
So there's there's a lot of nuance to it, and there's a lot about what message do you want to send?
Yeah,
because you could be there's a lot of, are you tolerating this behaviour because you're getting this result, or there is you're not going to tolerate any deviation from this set of rules. It's very black and white. And the interesting thing about our business, and I say to you, we've got a couple of so we've got one of our team members is just doing her master's, and then we've got another team member who's at university and works for us part-time whilst they're at university, and then they work for us full-time during the summer. And what is interesting and good about the work we do for them is, I always say to them, if you were working internally in an organisation, you'd get to see one way of writing and implementing a wellbeing policy. But working for us, a wellbeing policy is a wellbeing policy, but it's different for every organisation that you work for, and they have a different way of implementing it. So you actually get a much, broader perspective on individual pieces of HR.
Same in IT. You made a good point earlier on about sometimes you put up with certain types of tolerate behaviour, which we fell foul of in tolerating the behaviour of a couple of engineers because they were very good at what they did. But their human personal skills, as is the same in a lot of engineering and a lot of IT, were not amazing. But that caused knock-on effect to the culture of the office, to everybody else. And I got to a point where it was like, actually, I can't tolerate this anymore because that's not the company that I started. That's not the culture that I want in my office. And it is that thing of I'm a very big believer in, you have to love what you do to do it right. Because if you don't love what you do, you're not going to do it to your best ability.
So
you have to love it. And I say to my team all the time, I love what I do. I work in IT, working with cybersecurity. I absolutely love it. And the day I stop loving it, they won't see me in the office. But for my team, they have to love what they do. So I'll give an example. He won't mind me giving an example. Chris, who is our full-time videographer now, does all of our content creation, creates all of our social media, started in IT. He was an IT engineer, but he didn't love what he did. So we decided just over a year ago that we were going to start to move into doing more video content, more training content, more different types of content. And we found the ideal role for Chris that he's thrived in over the last year, absolutely loves what he's doing and doesn't want to do anything else.
Brilliant.
So we made that change of finding the right role for the person rather than the right person for the role. Is that the right way around?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So his role that he does now and has done for the last year didn't exist before in the company.
Yeah.
But now the company works better because it is there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of, I was definitely guilty of it. And I know a lot of business owners are guilty of the fact of hiring people to do a job, and every job role comes with expectations. You are expected to do what is in your job description, but either expecting more or expecting, I think mine was more falling foul of, because I cared so much about my business, I expect everybody else to care about it as well.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works.
Yeah.
It took me a while to understand that and realise that and actually go, that's it. It might be the reason why I wake up in the morning, but not necessarily the reason everybody else wakes up in the morning.
I think there's it's interesting, isn't it? The kind of like recruiting people.
Oh.
So some people, some people say, well, they don't have the skill. I need somebody who can do absolutely all of this. But the problem with doing that is that, if you employ someone who can do 100% of the role that you've got available, where is there for them to grow?
Nowhere.
So you want them, really, you should be recruiting people who can do 65% of the role you've got open and then developing them into the rest of it. Otherwise, very quickly, and this is sometimes why businesses see fast turnover. Somebody starts 6 months later, 9 months later, 12 months later, that person's gone because you recruited somebody who was, ready to do that job at the same level as the person before did it, and there was no growth for them.
Yeah, there's nowhere for them to go.
So you need to make sure that you're building, growth in when you're recruiting. And then I think, the other thing you say about, loving what you do and stuff like that, there's a word I'm trying to, dharma. It's Buddhist for when you find, what gives you joy or something, I think. And not every, as business owners, we probably do that because that's what we want to find that space where we're doing the stuff that we love with the autonomy and the freedom that,
supposedly comes with running your own business.
And a lot of people say, don't they, that sometimes what you find you do is you've left a job and started your business and given yourself another job because you're working in or on the business. But you can't expect everybody in your business to have that same joy and love from what they're doing. But if what they're doing at work, they enjoy and they're engaged in it, and it enables them to do the other things that they want to do in their life, then that's good as well. And that's as good as somebody that absolutely, loves what they do 100%.
Yeah.
Is, if it's enabling them to do the other things that they want to do in their life, like, I don't know, if you're a scout group leader or something, and you get to get home in time to go and do that every, Tuesday and Thursday or whatever it is. Those things are important as well for people. And I think when you're employing people, it's about not only what are you getting from them, but what are they getting from you? How are you supporting them to, live their best life?
Yeah, it is. It's thrown around quite a lot, but it is the work-life balance. I have the opinion that work-life balance is personal to everybody. There is no one fits all for work-life balance, because what is work-life balance for you might be different to what is work-life balance for me, and so forth. And I think it's finding, I suppose over the last 15 years, and I've employed quite a lot of people over the last 15 years, I've interviewed a lot of people. It's one of the things I hate doing. I hate interviewing. And I suppose I found, because my office at the moment is quite racially diverse. We have South Americans, we have Indians, we have South Africans, we have Romanians, we have English people that work for us. So it's all very multicultural, and always really has been. When you sit down to interview somebody, and over the time that I've interviewed and hired engineers, there's certain traits after a while that I can tell by sitting in an interview. I get, we call it the vibe, but I get the vibe of certain traits in our industry, and it's like, don't want that. Now, you might be amazing on paper, but I've got this vibe of a certain trait that you have, and it's like, it's really hard when it comes to interviewing and hiring people and actually knowing whether they're going to be work or fit. So we've changed now our process. I will do a 10-minute Teams interview with somebody who on paper looks good, just to kind of get to know them a little bit more, and then instead of doing a proper sit down, I'm going to ask you a ton of questions, because for me that gets me nothing, because if they're clever, they're going to have prepped for it, and they're going to give you the answers that you want to hear, and that's not what I want. So we now invite them in for half a day or a day. They get paid for it. If they can book holiday, if they're with another company, they come in and they spend a half a day or a day with my entire team. Yeah. Shadowing, asking questions, and then at the end, I can sit with my team and go, What did we think?
Yeah.
Did they ask questions? Were they engaged with it? And I found that we've hired some of our better staff from that way, and stopped us from hiring staff that we should.
Because it's hard to be somebody you're not for half a day or a whole day.
Exactly.
Although it's relatively easy to do that for an hour and a half in an interview.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, recruitment is, some people are better at it than others. Mm-hmm. Some jobs are easier to recruit for than others. But at the end of the day, it is, it's a gamble. It's always a gamble. And especially if you're aiming to kind of recruit that person who's 65% qualified for the job so they can grow into it, what if it's the wrong 65%? What if when you get them in there, you thought you could live with that, but actually, no, we can't. And that's not the bit, that's not the way they want to grow, so that there's a lot of risk in recruitment, which is why you should, endeavour to retain the people that you've got in your organisation. And, it's cheaper. There are always some roles, and there are always some places in a company where if you want to progress your career, you've got to move on.
Yeah.
But in the main, you should be, as a employer, you should be looking to retain the talent that you've got in the organisation.
Have you found that on the retention side, that there is a trend to what helps retain a staff member better, or a trend to what makes a staff member want to leave and not stay? Is there commonality in it, or is it?
Well, so that, the expression that people, join companies and leave managers is very true.
Yep.
So, if you've got to look at, the line management. So if people are leaving, you should always do exit interviews. the great thing about outsourcing your HR is that it's somebody that doesn't even work for the company who's doing the exit interview for you. So the people will be very open.
Yep.
And then you can just highlight trends and things like that. So you should always do an exit interview. You should look at the reasons why people say they're leaving. And, in terms of retention, it's, again, it's about going back to the people and saying, what is it that keeps you here? What is it that would tempt you away? What are attractive roles that you might be looking at? How could we, bring that in here? And then you get a feel for, what it is you need to be doing. But again, everybody's different, and it, depending on what stage of life you're at as well, so for me, I want to know how much you're going to pay in my pension. Whereas, if you're just starting a family, you want to know, what's the maternity leave, paternity leave, family-friendly policies, those kinds of things. If you're a graduate, you want to know, how quickly maybe can I progress through the ranks? How quickly can I earn, this much? How much training am I going to get? And there's been quite a bit of research on the different expectations that the different generations have out of work.
Have you noticed that expectations of employees have gotten bigger over the last 3 years with the whole COVID thing, with the whole work from home and all that sort of stuff, as the expectations grow?
I think employees are potentially more aware, maybe not just over the last 3 or 4 years, but maybe over the last 10 years, people are more aware of their value to an organisation or their, they have an awareness of or what they think their own value they bring to the organisation is, and they're more prepared to kind of like stand up for what they bring. And so they are looking for, how am I going to be rewarded by that? I think most people don't expect, they don't expect to be paid above the market rate. So if you can demonstrate to, a group of people, this is the market rate for this role. But, if you've got the flexibility of working from home, you could expect that to be lower. If you've got all these benefits, you could expect it to be lower. If we make you come into the office, every day, 9 till 5, and there's not really that many benefits, you might expect the salary to be higher, etc. But it depends very much on the individual, what is it they're looking for. But things like holiday, things like flexibility, things like pension, we're seeing a lot more interest at the moment in like cash plans and medical insurance and things like that, because the impact of COVID on the NHS and stuff,
and the state of our NHS. And
I mean, I've got a very real example of my own. About November last year, I was joking with a friend that you're getting old when the NHS sends you an invitation for a mammogram, your 4th COVID vaccination, and a bowel cancer screening kit all in the same week. So, I get it. So I did the bowel cancer screening kit, and I got a call back, and I had a colonoscopy, and they found some cancer.
Wow.
And they found that in December, and I was in February. I had an operation, I had a portion of my bowel removed. I ended up with an ostomy bag, but it was all done very quickly in the NHS, and that is where I think they excel. It was very quick.
Yep.
It's done very quickly. But then to get my stoma bag reversed, the waiting list was 9-10 months. So I actually had that done with my private medical insurance. But I think, if you are somebody who is waiting for a knee operation, or waiting for something to happen and you're in pain, or you are, or you're waiting for, a procedure, and you're worried about what's going on, as as a business owner, that worried person or that in pain person, is not able to work
to function,
in the same
or function at the same
as they
ability
are when
and speed.
when they're well. And so, as an organisation, you want to be able to get them the medical intervention that they need as quickly as possible. So we are seeing a lot of organisations looking at giving people, paying for private medical cover, or paying for the cash plan type thing, where if you need physiotherapy or an optician, the company pays, and then you get money towards your glasses or your physio and things like that. So seeing a lot of interest in that, and I think people are, again, it's a security motivator, and people are really interested in, okay, well, that's helpful for me.
Helping them in their normal lives as well as their work lives.
Yeah. And there are some very reasonable things that organisations can do. Like an employee assistance programme will cost you, a couple of pounds per employee per month. And it will provide all of your employees with, counselling sessions, CBT, legal advice, helpline. It's not very much money, but if you've got someone who's, suffering bereavement or stress or something like that, that intervention can be really helpful and can get your person, back to work or back to feeling like they can cope much more quickly than if you leave them to wait, 3-4 months to get counselling on the NHS. So I think, there's a lot of interest in those types of benefits. We are doing a few, benefits projects at the moment where organisations are saying, okay, so we're not going to increase salaries massively, but what we are interested in doing is providing some benefits. We always start with okay, well, what have you got at the minute? Because quite often you've got more than you think you have, but people aren't accessing it and they aren't using it. Why aren't they accessing it and using it? Oh, it's because, actually only 3 of them are left from when we launched it, and we haven't told anybody. The other 20 are new since it started, and they don't know about it. So
wasn't in our handbook. It wasn't in our onboarding process.
So there's a little bit of communication going on there, and then also go to people and say, okay, so this is what we're looking at, and there are some things that businesses can do to help towards the funding of that, because if you for example, if you set up a salary sacrifice scheme for your pension, you are making some employer NI savings. And what a lot of businesses are happy to do is to take that money and reinvest it in benefits.
It's actually, it's good.
Which is a really good good way of doing it.
Technically, it's not costing you anything, but it is to the business, but it is, so
we're doing quite a few sort of little projects like that, which have come out of engagement surveys. What's it like working here? If you could, what would you do? Well, I'd like this or I'd like that.
Do you do those surveys anonymously, or do you do them named anonymously?
No, we do them anonymously. If you really and truly want honest feedback,
you need them anonymous.
People need to feel like nobody's going back to them. And I always test those sorts of things on my other half as well, because he's really suspicious. So he's worked for some companies where people have stood over him and said, you need to fill in your survey.
I'm going to watch you while you do it. And
he's like, I'll take it home and do it, kind of thing. But so I always say, okay, so if we communicated it like this, what questions would you ask? And you go, well, I want to know, can't they trace my email address? Can't they do that? And so we try to, factor those things into the communication. No, it's completely anonymous. But then, and
using technology to do that.
We generally
software based.
So if people want to do kind of like just a quick and dirty, we can bespoke the questions, but it's quite quick and simple. We use Teams, so we use something on Teams, but it all comes back into us.
Yes. So you're the ones that know, nobody else, and these are your responses.
Yeah. And we just amalgamate the responses, analyze the data, and send it over. But there are lots of different pieces of software and stuff that you can use. But that's it's quick and it's deep.
Obviously, people are more honest and open when it is fully anonymous.
Yeah.
And I suppose you, as a business owner, you can pull a lot of insights out of that.
You can get a lot out of that. Yeah, you really can. And you can do both.
As long as you take it open-mindedly and not very...
Yeah, and you can do both quantitative and qualitative questions. So you get, free text bits where people can put in things, and then we will paraphrase so you can't kind of like... so people can't
like
accidentally identify themselves by using, their same language patterns and things like that. So we can, we'll paraphrase so it really and truly is anonymous.
And are you finding more business owners are very open to the information that comes back, or?
I think a lot of people are very open. You want... So what we would always do as well is we would talk to them about the questions that they ask. So some people, will set up a questionnaire, and you'll find that the questions that they want to use, they are inviting very personal feedback back. And so you sometimes might say so I might say to you, okay, Daniel, these are great questions. And, what sort of responses do you think, you've got a feel for what's going on. What sort of responses do you think you're going to get? And then we can say to you, you might get some surprises come up here. And this is very much about you and your style as a leadership. So be prepared for, what feedback you're going to get. Yeah. This is very much about what it's like working in the company and the culture. So these are the sorts of responses you might get. And we'll talk to you about, how the questions are set up. And then we can say, actually, if you're not interested in getting that very personal feedback about your leadership style at the moment, maybe you just want to know what people feel about what it's like to work here, then maybe we'll phrase it in this way. But every HR professional you speak to will tell you about at least one line manager who's phoned them up and asked for the names of the people that haven't filled in the anonymous survey. We used to have a little sweepstake of who's going to be first to do that. And then you get departments that are good at filling it in, departments that aren't good at filling it in. And so sales departments generally aren't very good at filling anything in. As an HR professional, when dealing with sales teams, my one piece of advice to anyone starting out dealing with a sales team is keep it simple. Don't give them too many forms to fill in. Don't ask them too many questions. If you can do it on a phone call, do it on a phone call. But I once did say to a sales director, come on, look, you told me you've got the best team in this business, and you've got a 30% return on your staff engagement questionnaires. 3 days later, 110% return.
110%.
Some people did it twice.
Yes, boss. Yes, boss. We're doing it now, boss. Rule with an iron fist.
So yeah, but starting with asking is a good place to start. But if you're going to ask, you have to feed back.
Yeah.
So you have to say, we asked, you said, this is what we've done.
Yeah.
And it might be, we asked, you said, we can't do that, but this is what we've thought of instead.
Yeah, we do that a lot in IT. So we pride ourselves on we're solution providers.
Yeah.
We're not break fix, we're solution providers.
Yeah.
So a client will come to us and go, I need this.
Yeah.
And we go, but do you really?
Yes.
So then we have to dig in and understand whether they need it or they want it.
Yeah.
And when they do say, we need this. Okay, right. But you can't have that. So because we deal with a lot of cyber certified companies. We work with IASME, Cyber Essentials Plus certification, so they can work with governments and so forth. They'll come and go, we want to use this. Like,
No, it's not.
You can't. Why? Because it doesn't tick the cybersecurity tick boxes, right? But I need it to do this. So we work with occupational health. Same. I need this. Doesn't tick the boxes, right? So where other IT companies will turn around and go, you can't have it, full stop.
Yeah.
We will go, you can't have it, but let's go and find you something that you can have.
Yeah.
Or is there another, if it's a product, if it's a software or so forth, is there another one on the market that actually ticks the boxes? Or is there a way in which we can make it tick the boxes by putting it in certain ways or so forth? And our clients, a lot of them stay with us because
they know. And you're doing that research for them as well. So I'm not, I want something that does this, but it needs to be cyber essentials secure. Can you help me?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have to work it all out for myself.
We do all the research for them to come back to them and go, you can have this actually. Here you go. I've got one at the moment actually. A client of mine has turned around, they're cyber essentials certified, and they've turned around and gone, we have a new member of staff that is going to be onboarded, and as part of their access to work, they are required to have a Remarkable 2 pad, which is a digital writing pad, right? They're all over the net at the moment. And they've gone, we don't know if it's going to tick the boxes. Yeah. Is it going to tick the boxes? And we've gone, leave it with us. I don't know. We haven't got one in place at the moment. So we're on a research project at the moment to find out, will it tick the boxes? And if it doesn't, how can I make it tick the boxes? Or in which way do we have to do things so that it does tick the boxes? Because they require it to work. So we work a lot in occupational health with occupational health societies and companies. And there is always this need for, especially when it's access to work, because they work a lot with getting disability back into the workplace.
Super sensitive personal information, aren't they?
Yes, super sensitive stuff. But that we get a lot of requests where it's like, we have to have this. Yeah. We have to have this because we require it for this. And it's like, okay.
What you mean is you need something that looks and feels and delivers something like this.
Does it actually have to be this, or does it have to have, which bits of this do you need? Oh, well, I actually only need it to do that bit and that bit. I don't need all the rest. Okay, so let's go and find you something that does those 2 bits. Yeah. Or if not, let's get you something built that does those 2 bits. I was going to say,
and then can you create something that
we can create something that will solve the solution? We did it recently. So we have a client who has moved databases. They did it in a bit of more of a hurry than they needed to, because their last database company decided that they were going to give them notice. It's like, our new database is not quite ready. Yeah. And we've got a couple of sections which is not going to be ready for 12 months. But they're bits that we really need to function, because otherwise our 100-odd staff are not going to be able to function. It's like, okay, right, can you solve it? And it's like, I think this was on a Saturday evening conversation with the director. And we found a solution. It was like, okay, we need to build something. We temporarily build a piece of software that ticks all the boxes, that allows us to gather the data that you require, save it securely, and keep it in a format that when your database is ready, they can go it's just transferred over and it's in. Really? Yeah. Let's test it. We went through a week and a half's worth of testing just to make sure that we'd ironed everything out, and we pulled in all the necessary. We were working in occupational health, so we pulled in the clinicians and the nurses and so forth, and admin. Is it the right information? Yes. Is it presented how you need it? Yes. Okay. Is there anything you require changed? No. Need to add a question here. Okay. Fine. Is it the right data output? Yes. Done. Yeah. Solution provided. Because that's what we do. Yeah. It's the service industry. And I think I've worked in the service industry a long time. So I think that's where a lot of, and I'm speaking generically, but a lot of service companies, doesn't matter if they're in IT, fall down is the computer says no. Yeah. Yeah. Can't do it. Yeah. And it's like, But you can though, because
Yeah.
there's that thing of it's either going to cost money, cost time, or cost expertise, or a mixture of the three.
Yeah.
But there's probably a solution for it.
Yeah.
It's just you need to invest some time to find it.
Well, and it's very simple because, it's your IT where HR is. It's a service and it's a solution. At the end of the day, you can, I say to people, I say to people things like, because people go, oh, can't say that with HR in the room. And I say, well, you can say whatever you like to me. You just can't say it to anyone else. And then I say to people, you can do whatever you like within the law, but that depends on how much money you want to pay for what you want to do. There is always a solution. It might be more expensive than what you want it to be, or it might take longer. But generally, the quick, ideal solution is the most expensive option to take.
Exactly, and IT is the same thing.
That's just the way it is, isn't it? But all of these things, and coming back to the benefits and how it plays into culture and stuff like that, you could have a whole shed load of benefits, but some of them, if they're not what people want, you've got to question the cost. And there's quite a lot of old-fashioned benefits now.
That's right.
There's quite a lot of old-fashioned benefits now that, people that are really expensive that people should be starting to take out of their benefits.
What sort of stuff?
So things like widows' pensions. So I'm in a company pension scheme. If I die, my other half gets X percent of the pension pot for X number of years. That they've become really, really expensive. And actually, people don't really, they don't really want that. They want other things.
I'd sacrifice that for private medical cover.
Or income protection, or, critical illness cover is, that's one that you can, it's become a lot more flexible. So you can increase things in increments of kind of like 10 or 20,000 or something like that. And you could take, out critical illness cover for 100 grand. So it doesn't have to be like 500 grand or something like that. You can take out a smaller sum, and that that's become a lot more flexible than it always used to be. So you might want to look at some of the policies that you've got and see whether there's a more modern option,
or whether they're actually being used, because
whether they're what the take up is on them. I mean, that's always a thing as well. Is what's the take up? A lot of organisations will do like a pot, so a proportion, so a percentage of your salary. So you earn £50,000, but you get 2.5% of that in a pot to spend on benefits. And you might be able to, in some organisations you can take it as cash. In other organisations they don't let you take it as cash. They say no, spend it on the benefits. Buy some more holiday, or sell some holiday and buy big life insurance policy. Or
are you finding more and more being able to buy holiday and sell holiday back to the company is being taken up, or is being used a lot more in businesses now?
I think more people are kind of like realising that, actually that works. It doesn't. When I first started in HR, holiday entitlement was kind of like, going up, and people are like, oh my God, we'll never be able to, we won't be able to roster around all of this holiday that people will take. It'll be a nightmare. But it's not, you've got a set number of days every year, and you just need to, work towards it. Decide how many people you can have off, what your minimum resource is, and work around that. And, put down the rules. Okay, well, you can't have more than this many people off in a day. And it's not that much.
It's not
difficult.
We work around those types of principles. Do you work with any companies, or have you worked with any companies that don't have a set holiday entitlement?
Yes, we've got a few of our clients have got.
How does it work?
As much leave as you like.
Does it work well, not so well, or is it a case by case basis?
It works pretty well, and you know it doesn't get abused.
I suppose that's the worry of all business owners is the abuse of
most people don't take months and months of paid holiday. But what it's really useful for is if, like schools go on strike and, and then all of a sudden, I've got the kids home all day, and with the best will in the world, if you've got small children, you can't do a lot of work. And sometimes it's better just to say, I'm not doing anything today because, they're home. I'll take it as a holiday. So, the clients that we've got that use it, we've not had any problems.
Do you see
not
that
been asked to manage,
becoming more of the norm? Do you think it's gonna?
Potentially, but I think as people implement it and realise that it's not actually used that much, you wonder then as an HR professional how much of it. Is it a bit of a gimmick or?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there is there's a genuine desire to be open and flexible and generous in terms of the leave there.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody that's implemented it is doing it as a gimmick, but I don't necessarily think it's changing the face of how, annual leave is monitored and run in organisations. But it's, it's nice if you've got an organisation that says, actually, you can take as much as you need. And there are always people who won't take all of their annual 100%. Leave.
I'm one of those.
Yeah, there's always people that you're forcing out the door saying,
get away,
have your leave. Yes,
I tend to do that here in the office for lunches more than anything else. Yeah. So, have you had your break? No, I've got stuff to do. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go and
have your break. Yeah. Or threatening to turn people's computers off if they don't go and have their break. I can see one of the culprits is sat in the room with us at the moment that has that same problem. But yeah, I tend to do that a lot more. Yeah. It's like, why are you not on your break? Because you have to. It's not even a thing of you have to take it because it's in your contract. It's you need that break.
Kind of just a reset, isn't it? Yeah. Just get outside. take your eyes off the screen.
Yeah, do something else that you're not
focus somewhere else.
Especially in ours, in our industry, because we're sat at desks, and sometimes if we're on large tasks, complex problems, we are staring at that screen for a long period of time. And as IT engineers, we get focused on something, and the blinkers are on, filters are on to the rest of the world until we get the task done, because we get that dopamine hit out of completing the task. Yeah. We do kind of need sometimes the kick to go.
Yeah, just go and take a break.
We've
just done a big project, about 100 people organisation, getting them to do their DSE assessments. And we put together a bit of a resource sheet for things like, so this is a mix of people working in offices, working from home, working, hybridly across different things, all with laptops as well. So then you've got that kind of and I know when I'm worked on my laptop, I do that, the Mr. Burns look.
Yep.
And then I wonder why my neck and shoulders are killing me. So it's quite interesting, that how many people are saying no, they don't have a problem, they don't have any pain, and then I look at the the age profiles and I think give it 5 years. But we've just done this big survey for this organisation, getting everybody to fill it in and send it back, and then we did some research on cost of ergonomic mouses and keyboards for people using laptop keyboards and chairs
laptop
and all of that stuff
and
things like that. And so then you ask this question, so actually should there be some kind of budget for if somebody is going to work predominantly from home, or only say they're only going to be in the office 2 days a week, should we have some sort of budget that makes sure that they they have got a seat that moves, and a stand to put their laptop on, and an
it's cheap,
external keyboard and mouse, and it doesn't cost that.
The seat
Seat's
probably is more
expensive.
expensive, but a laptop stand, a keyboard and mouse that they can put it on, they get their screen up to the right height, a keyboard and mouse. It's cheap nowadays. We put them together, the packages together for some of our clients as they're onboarding staff, moving out, and it's like, okay, and they just tick the box. Yep, they need this. They work from home. They need this package.
Yeah. And a footstool.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing? Document holder.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me, why do people need document holders?
Because people collect paper even if you're paperless.
And I was saying, well, it's about, if you're typing something from one document to another, or you're looking at notes and you're trying to type up notes and stuff like that. And it was a young person that said to me, why would they need a document holder?
It's all digital.
What's that? And you just looked down there. I said, no, but then you are doing that, aren't you?
Yeah.
And that's not a good movement to be doing. So the point of the document holder is you have it
So
level
eye
with
level.
the screen, and you're doing that.
Just like an additional monitor. So
Yeah.
there is a study that you become 60% more productive with a second monitor.
Yeah, but every time I do that, I can't find my mouse. I can't get it off of one screen onto the other, and my mouse disappears.
So now in Windows, there is an ability to turn on in Windows where you can just double hit the control button and it will zoom into where your mouse.
Oh, okay, right. Well, I might try again then.
So yeah, it's 6, and it works. So I mean, as you'd have seen walking through our office, and you'll see walking back out, we have. I run on 5 monitors on my desk.
Well, this is what the young person said to me when I said, so you have the document holder there and the screen, and they went,
What about my other
oh,
monitor?
like a second screen. And I went, yeah.
It is. It's. I suppose. So we work with companies that are fully digital.
Yeah.
So paperless, completely paperless, or they like to think they're completely.
Nobody's
paperless.
completely paperless.
Nobody's completely paperless. We're a fairly paperless office. And I say fairly because everything gets scanned and then the paper gets shredded if it has come out as paper. But I have some clients that are like, oh yeah, we're fully paperless. Like,
Yeah, no,
but,
you're not.
but as a company, you might be. But I guarantee I can walk into a couple of your staff members and they've got a book or they've got a pad and they're writing stuff. Well, yeah, then you're not paperless.
Yeah.
Because they are still so, I get the point. Document reader on the side.
There's also, I don't think it's necessarily good to be completely paperless. The way the brain works, by engaging those senses and writing stuff down, it's more likely to stay, in your head.
If I write it, it stays in my head. If I type it, it doesn't.
No. And because you're not, the pattern recognition is when you're looking at your own handwriting is much greater than when you're looking at a type.
Say that, although I hand things to these guys that I've written and they'll go, what did you write? And I look at it and go,
mine's like that. Should have been a doctor.
I don't know. Maybe it was this word.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I suppose. Do you find? So we find it here, and I find it with working with clients and their teams. And this is a generalization, but the younger members of their teams are more expectant of more. I think we've lost that.
Yeah.
We've lost that thing of, I come to work, okay, so I pay you to do your job, right? Okay, but I'm here, so they expect I want this. Oh, and you want me to show up for work?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I pay you for, is for you to do a job.
I think, yes, I think that's right. And I don't know how much of that is, when I left school, there were 3 million people unemployed. So maybe I have that kind of like, I've got a job and I'm lucky I've got a job kind of mindset. Whereas, they're leaving school and everybody wants them. So, I don't know whether it's that. I don't know whether we have just become better about talking about what we want. we've come, and I think, I was saying earlier, I think we employees understand much better the value that they bring. So maybe we are just all a bit more understanding of how value and culture and learning works in an organisation. We're much more open about, talking about our mental health, which is what we need to get out of this deal between, you and I. If I'm going to work for you, what am I getting? What are you getting? So I think it is just, I don't think it's necessarily typical of the younger generation. I think it is just the way that we,
way the world
we are bringing
has gone.
I mean, I say to my kids, come on, make sure you're getting the, I say to them, one of my sons is at university, and I said to him the other day, well, if you're getting 12 hours of lectures at £9,000 a year for 36 weeks of the year, you're paying £22 an hour for those lectures. So you make sure you get your money's worth, and you do. Yep. And I said to them all through their schooling, I pay my taxes and that pays those teachers' wages. So if you are not getting what you need from the teacher, don't be afraid to go back and say, I'm not stupid. You didn't teach it properly. So if I haven't understood it, that's not my fault. It's your fault.
And teachers get
humpy. And I have had a lot of conversations with teachers where I have had to point out to them, excuse me, isn't that your job? Yeah.
Again, it goes back to where we started with the education system being broken.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think, we're all more aware of what our rights are or our needs are in a situation. We are moving towards, a society where we should be more aware of what everyone, needs and wants and, requirements are to be able to fully contribute. Yeah. And I think that, that's part of it.
As long as people do fully contribute, I think that's as a business owner, I think that's I have no problems with assisting or helping any of my team in their normal lives and to make their lives better rather than just the work hours they're with me.
But you expect.
And I don't like expecting things because I've learned not to expect anything, because always expect the worst and then everything else is fine, right? But it's that thing of you expect engagement. You expect them to engage and come back into
and
it.
And I think by doing you do that to get the engagement. And I think most times you do. And if there is a situation where you don't get it, then maybe that's the signal that it's not the right fit. And maybe there are other businesses that will engage this particular person better. Yeah, I suppose so. It's it's not only finding the business that fits the employee, but also finding the employee that fits the business. Yeah. Okay. So, thank you very much for coming down the podcast. Wrapping up, one thing that you see lots of businesses do that they should really correct? Something that really irks you about? Okay, so I'm going to give you two things.
Go for it. Two is brilliant.
Right, one thing I would say to everybody is, when was the last time you updated your employment contracts? Because the legislation changed massively in 2020. Okay. It changes twice a year, every year. But in 2020, there were some big differences to what you need to be putting into your employment contracts. So
what way?
So you now need to put in some specific stuff around days and times of work. You need to put down things about benefits that you offer, and you need to put down stuff around training. And if you are not putting those things in there, if you're working on a template that you say, had in 2018, and you've employed people since the legislation changed, then they're working on out-of-date contracts. Now, we had an incident where we were asked to help somebody and give them some last-minute advice just before they went into a tribunal, which we did. We looked at the contract and we said, okay, so when did you employ this person? late 2020, so after the legislation came in. They're on an old template, and the award against that business in the tribunal was increased because the judge said, if you are working on out-of-date contracts, then, I have no reason to believe that you have done the things that you said you'd done. So I'm going to
haven't taken due care
and attention over your contracts. Wow. So that's my first thing is employment legislation changes April and October every year. If you are not looking at it and checking that you are right, who is?
Or talking to a professional that can do it for you.
Who is?
Yeah, I'm big on outsourcing stuff that you're not, that is not your niche.
Yeah. And the second thing is culture. Like I said at the beginning, if you are not working on your culture, you are getting, an approximation of what you want.
How can somebody we heavily think about our culture, and we know that our culture has changed a lot over the last couple of years. But for companies who have never even looked at their culture, how do they even start? Where do they start? Where's the best place for them to start to actually go, we need to know what our culture is. We need to...
that's the first place is to start, is to think about what culture, what do you have? What do you want? How would you articulate it? So if you are, if you think about your people down the pub on a Friday night and someone says to them, what's it like to work at X? What do you want them to say? What are they saying? What do you want them to say? How are you going to articulate that in a set of values or principles or behaviours that you expect people to do? What does it look like? And how do you keep that relevant? So, if you acquire another business, you are diluting your culture with the culture of the business you've just acquired. Yep. If you take on 10 people to deliver a big project, you are diluting your culture with the culture that the 10 people from wherever they came from bring in with them. So what do you do when you induct those people and bring those people on board to make sure that they understand what are the important parts of your culture that you do not want diluted? And it comes down to what are the values you hold and what are the behaviours that you demonstrate and that you expect your people to demonstrate.
Nice. Okay. I hadn't looked at it or thought of it in that way, actually. Yeah, I suppose. I know my brain is thinking because our cultural change has changed a lot from the companies that know us and the people that know us very well and spend a lot of time coming down to our offices. Even they will sit down and tell you, from where it was 24 months ago, mid-COVID, to where you are now, it's a completely different office space to work in.
Yeah.
It is a completely different environment, completely different culture. But I'd not looked at it in that thingy that it is, in that aspect that it is what your values are and what how you're behaving as a leader, as a team manager. We go back to the one rotten apple can spoil the barrel.
Well,
right?
and that's about behaviour, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
People learn from other people.
And it's about, what they see tolerated in terms of that
monkey see, monkey do.
Exactly. So that's why the behaviour piece is important. The value is what you hold dear, and then you behave in a way that demonstrates that value. But then, like you say, if you've not got people demonstrating the behaviours that you want to demonstrate, then that's when it starts to go awry. Yeah, massively so.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for coming down.
I hope that
the viewers out there are going to enjoy what they're going to listen to in the hour conversation or so that we've had. Thank you very much for coming down. We hope you'll come back to us and come and sit and have a podcast with us later in the future.
Love to. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Take care.